Welcome in, everybody, to Big 12 football and beyond on the Landry Football Podcast Network. Scout's Eye on college football. Interesting week, obviously led by Oklahoma's win, Oklahoma State. Some news out of Oklahoma regarding Oklahoma and Oklahoma State we're going to get to as well. So we're going to get right to it, but mainly break down all the games. Want to remind you of a couple of things that we need your help on. Sign up for the Off the Hook Sports YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and share. That's the way you can help us grow this. Tell folks, tell other friends of this conference, other friends of college football about what we're doing here on Off the Hook Sports by subscribing, liking, and sharing it. Do all those things. Do the same thing if you would at the Landry Football Podcast Network. This is a collaborative effort of the Landry Football Podcast Network and the YouTube channel of Off the Hook Sports. So subscribe, like, and share. Subscribe, like, and share the Landry Football Podcast Network and Off the Hook Sports YouTube channel. Appreciate you doing that. Also, if you want more detailed information on the college game, the NFL game, go to LandryFootball.com. We've got it there for you, the full breakdowns of all the teams, all the games. We got it for you there. So please check it out. Couple of things that have come out. I'm going to start with this. It's come out that Oklahoma State has decided that they no longer want to play Oklahoma once Oklahoma goes to the Big Ten. That is not shocking when you consider the fact that this is kind of what happens when you have, quote unquote, and they hate each other, like any rivals, but they're in the state, they're kind of Big 12 partners, and one of their partners has left to go to greener pastures. And there's no question that, of course, Oklahoma State would have loved to have been a part of the move to the SEC. That wasn't going to happen. And so they feel like they're left behind. They're going to make the statement about, um, we can't figure it in the scheduling and whatnot. Of course they can. Uh, they just don't want to do it. And so, listen, it's not a great rival. It's actually a good rivalry for the state of Oklahoma. Like any rivalry, it's good for the people that it matters to. It's not a competitive rivalry. Oklahoma's dominated it. But I think it's unfortunate. But that's kind of what's more and more what's going to happen in this world of expansion and growth, and it's better growth for some than others. Speaking of Oklahoma, scored 48 straight points. As Nebraska came out, played well early. Speaking of rivalries that, they play one another, and that's Big Ten, Big 12, and now soon Big Ten SEC type. In Lincoln, I thought Nebraska came out with some energy. Boy, it just didn't last. 49 straight points, as I mentioned. Sooners ran for 312 yards on the ground, threw for 268 yards, and they had a lot to balance. They look really good. Look, there is a big gap between the top three teams in the country and who's four. A huge gap. And I think you can look at a number of people there. I'm not so sure that, though, if you're going to put who are the leaders of the pack of the fourth spot, might be Oklahoma. I think you can throw Michigan in the mix. I don't like the way Clemson is playing on offense. I think they could be, with development and improvement on offense, with their defense, could be in that mix. And let's just call it like it is. Their schedule is favorable enough to where they might have the record and the resume to get it done. Oklahoma State blew out Pine Bluff, Arkansas Pine Bluff. Baylor steamrolled Texas State. A true freshman running back had a really good game. Texas looked like there was a little bit of a hangover early against Texas San Antonio, but boy, they righted themselves. They leaned on B. John Robinson. Hunter Deckers played very well as Iowa State blew by Ohio. They remain unbeaten. West Virginia beat Towson with running back Tony Mathis and tight end C.J. Donaldson and pacing the offensive attack. Let's kind of take a look at the teams and kind of how they shape up at this point and how they rank. And it looked like it might be an open league at the beginning of the year for some. A lot of people talked about Oklahoma State with the bottom of the league looking like it's better. Well, it is. I mean, I think there's some There are different challenges within this league. There are four or so teams uh, that look pretty good, and any given Saturday thing applies. Right now, certainly Oklahoma looks like the best team, and um, they're playing better on defense. And here's the thing about it: no, they're not as good defensively as I think they ultimately will be under Brent Venables, but they're better coached defensively. They do a better job leveraging the run. They do a better job staying in their landmarks and coverage. They were not only poorly talented on defense at Oklahoma, the biggest problem was coaching. Everything under Lincoln Riley, how they recruited, how they practice every day, was to feature his offense. Same thing's going on out at USC right now in the early tenure of Lincoln Riley. We'll give him time to figure some things out, some things that he never figured out while he was at Oklahoma. But the reality is this is a defense that puts more attention and focus to it while still being really good on offense. They put the foot down on Nebraska. That's what they did. 35-7 at halftime, 49-7 through three quarters, 49-14. The defense is really good. I know Nebraska's not good, but we're going to start to see some challenges in this Big 12, as we're kind of alluding to. I thought that the true freshman Jaron Kanak was really good. If the defense shows up and this offense under Dylan Gabriel, this is your Big 12 favorite. Oklahoma State cruised to that 63-7 victory over Arkansas Pine Bluff. 3 double-digit victories. Oklahoma State's off this week. We'll get a feel for them as they go to Waco to see Baylor, and that's going to be interesting. The defense has been pretty good after the first game hiccups of blowing the lead against Central Michigan. So they've kind of righted the ship, but I want to see what they do against Big 12 competition. Baylor's right there. They hadn't been as cohesive offensively, and I know they really did not play with a lot of confidence offensively against BYU, but they're not far off, particularly on the offensive line. The defense is still one of the Big 12's best. I thought they smothered Texas State. I think they're going to play well through the Big 12 slate defensively. They travel to Iowa State this weekend. Then they host Oklahoma State. So we're going to get to know about this Baylor team the next couple of weeks. Look, they handle business these next 2 weeks. Remember, their loss was to BYU. It's out of conference. BYU is not a Big 12 team yet. Texas, as we mentioned, went into halftime with a solid Texas San Antonio team, pulled away in the second half, 41-20. I like the focus, the finish for this Longhorn team last week. B. John Robinson, Rashawn Johnson, Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, they give this offense some juice, regardless who's playing at quarterback. And I think that's important. Now, Quinn Ewers is practicing this week. So here's hoping for him and for the Longhorns that they can get him on the field back in. At Texas Tech, look, a dangerous team. First Big 12 game, you got to be careful. I'm curious to see how they play and respond in this game. Kansas, Kansas, I'd put them kind of in that fifth ranking within the league. I'm going to tell you, Kansas is not the type of team that can contend. So there's a line behind the top four. But if I'm looking at the next wave, I'm looking at Kansas. And they've got a really good offense that's going to give people trouble in the Big 12. They had an 18-point win against Houston. Coaching mismatch with him and Dana Holgorsen, no doubt. But the defense needs to come around if they're going to win consistently in the Big 12. Look, Duke, Iowa State. They can get by some of these teams with their offense. Quarterback's outstanding. They're just have gone from a nothing team that could do nothing to now being really a tough out and a really big challenge. Disappointment of the week was Kansas State's performance against Tulane. The defensive side was a problem. The offensive side's a problem, whereas Kansas is on the defensive side. Kansas State, they were really they weren't all that impressive against Missouri, but they dominated physically. Um, at this point, I'm worried about their ability in the passing game, and I think that's going to be their downfall within conference play. TCU are a little bit of a mystery. 25-point win over Colorado was understandable. Colorado's bad. They beat Tarleton State. Um, SMU, which lost to Maryland, hosts TCU this weekend. I'm not comfortable with this TCU team. I think they have traded, and I understand that both sides probably wanted to move on, but they're not going to get the occasional um, good team that can challenge for the top of the league anymore in the Big 12 that they did under Gary Patterson. Um, I just don't think you're going to get the occasional good defensive effort. Sonny Cumbie's team is going to always be limited in terms of personnel, and they're going to be limited defensively. So they're going to be middle to lower part of the pack of the Big 12 going forward, even as Oklahoma and Texas leaves. It's a rebuilding year for Iowa State, but they're 3-0. They don't look impressive on film. Um, the Iowa game was a bloodbath. They're building mode, young roster. If they can steal one from Baylor, that would be huge because I don't think they're as good as Baylor right now. They need to find some firepower that's good defensive against a good defensive team. They don't really have it. Their own defense is pretty good, but their offense not so much. Texas Tech, look, they got a victory over Houston. Came in double overtime in Lubbock. Kansas won by 18 at Houston. Tech's only loss came at a ranked NC State team. Look, I think this Texas Tech team can be a tough out on a given Saturday. They don't turn the football over. Through 3 interceptions in the last 2 games. The defense has been pretty strong thus far. The offense has the ability to put points on the board, but must get out of its own way. Expect Lubbock to be a good atmosphere as they host Texas this weekend. This is going to tell us an awful lot. I got to tell you, the team that is most concerning inside the league is West Virginia. I don't think they're bad, but boy, they're far from good at this point. They're 2 plays away from being undefeated. You've heard that before. And one of them was against a pretty good Pitt team. Pitt's ranked. Kansas is on the fringe of being ranked, and so it's not like they've lost to bad teams, but that's who they're going to play inside the league. And so how they're going to fare against a Texas Tech offense, an Iowa State defense, a TCU, a Kansas. I mean, I'm really worried about where the direction is under Neil Brown. I think a lot of the West Virginia supporters are concerned about it. The recruiting level is not what they had hoped. It is a difficult job. They are still kind of the sore thumb that just doesn't fit inside the Big 12 geographically. And it's tough to recruit. It's tough to have an identity. Kids in their recruiting area they're not as interested. They would prefer to go somewhere in the ACC or somewhere else that they can see their family can see them play. And they don't really have a route inside the state of Texas. When they hired Dana Holgerson, they thought, well, he can get us in the state of Texas, Big 12 in recruiting. And Dana's not a very good recruiter and, quite frankly, not a very good coach in terms of consistency and getting his team to play with discipline and focus on the field. So I've got real concerns, but yet I don't think they're bad either. So I'm curious to see how they respond as they get into it. Now, they've got Virginia Tech on Thursday. That's an intriguing game outside of the league, but a big one for Virginia Tech to get some momentum going into Big 12 play. Hey, a reminder again, sign up for Off the Hook Sports YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and share. Do the same for the Landry Football Podcast Network. Subscribe, like, and share. If you'll do that, it helps us grow and allow you to get more of these type of shows for you on college football, my conference, and national. I do a lot of stuff on the NFL and the Landry Football Podcast Network. So make sure that you subscribe, like, and share the Landry Football Podcast Network, as well as Off the Hook Sports YouTube channel. If you're a fan of the Big 12, spread the word. Sign up for the Big 12 football and beyond, or part of the Landry Football Podcast Network. If you're a fan of another conference, SEC, Big 10, ACC, Pac-12, sign up for that conference and beyond. Pac-12 football and beyond. ACC football and beyond. You know the drill. So check that out. Also, check out LandryFootball.com, where you get even more detailed film room breakdowns and analysis on the game of college football and the NFL. We've got it covered for you, so make sure that you join us right there. We appreciate you. Talk to you next time on another edition on the Landry Football Podcast Network.